My name's Russell. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, this must be. I got to tell you something. I'm senile. Well, that's another story. I'll get into that in a second. But I can pass. It does. You wouldn't know unless you hung around me. But I see a lot of people that I've known for the last 30, 40 years in this deal, and this must be what AA is like in Century Village, like in an assisted living facility. You know what I mean, Paul? This is what it must look like. It's over for us. It's like I love talking. This is great. I'm talking to people. Where you really don't have that much time left. You know what I mean? Because the great thing about I'm 73. I've been sober for I'm in my 42nd year of sobriety, and well, you say that, you say stuff like that, to let people know that you can actually do it. But I always feel kind of, it's not a big deal. I always feel kind of crazy about the applause. I appreciate it because, I had nothing to do with it. If I had my way, I'd be dead a long time ago. But in any event, I just love sort of sharing my deal. This is what we're supposed to do. We share our stories and stuff like that. And so it's great to be here and be with you guys. And I see a lot of people that I've known over the years. And I am 73. I'm married. The facts, this is the factual stuff. And I've been married for like 42 years or something like that. My wife's going up. I'm going up with her to the Al-Anon convention, Our Ladies of Perpetual Revenge. The Al-Anon handshake. Or, she does a mean Al-Anon 10-step. When I'm wrong, she probably admits it. So I'm going to be going up there. I'll be speaking at the 101 Club, and I'm going up there. I'm going to do a little something at the convention. But but she's hard at work at Al-Anon. She does a lot of that stuff now. I want to apologize for the people at home on Zoom. There is something wrong with the internet here. I noticed because I'm looking at it that I appear, I'm sure at home, to be an overweight old guy. You know what I mean? There is a problem with the internet in this room. We're going to try to straighten it out. You guys in the back that can't see me, I have silver blonde hair, sparkling blue eyes, and I weigh about 180 pounds, so I'm 6 foot tall. Okay, so we got that out of the way. So I'm going to share a couple of things. We're going to see how fast I can get kicked out of this room. I'm going for a record. They kicked me out of Little River after 4 talks, I think I mentioned Jesus or something, and I don't know what I did. But the good thing about talking to older people, I don't see any young people here. I mean, I'm sure I think young here is like 45 or something. But the good thing about talking to people that, listen, you gotta excuse me. I have no social graces. I just say what's on my heart. You understand? I don't need to have the books here or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about my experience. My sponsor once told me the way you have a good aim is you're just sincere. And once you learn how to fake that, you got it made. And I'm just going to, the great thing about saying what's on your heart, there's nothing canned here or anything like that is I always pray. I didn't pray yet. I'm going to have to, Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, my Lord and my Savior. And thank you very much. And so that's the deal. I got to give credit to God because He's the reason I'm here. He's the reason for everything. We got 4 kids and 8 grandkids, raised them all sober, and and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I know you guys are sort of expecting. I don't know what you're expecting. Who knows? But these step series, I've been doing them for like 30, 35 years. They, and I used to do it. I used to be really good at it. I mean, I used to actually do it the way it's supposed to be done. But you get old. I don't really do the steps. I'm not going to say I don't do them, but it's like wax on. Here's what the story is. When you first come into Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps are so different and so weird, and you so don't understand them. And they so don't make any sense. And you don't understand why you have to do them or how you do them, what you do. And I agonized over the 4th step. How do I do this? Or the 5th. And then you do them. And then you realize that they're sort of like templates. They're tools to get to a place. And the only thing I want to share with you here is really the place I've gotten to. I want to share the destination. There's too many people that are See, I go off on these tangents. I'm about to go off on a tangent. One of the things I've seen in the last 41 and a half years is I got a gazillion people that have under 20 years. A gazillion people that have under 20 years. I mean, I'm like that Farmers commercial. I know a lot because I've seen a lot. And I don't know everything, but I know a few things. And there's a gazillion people with less than 20 years. There's a lot of people in AA. You've probably heard this. I had 11 years and then I drank. I had 5 years and then I drank. I had 3 years and then I drank. I've been around AA for 40 years and now I got 90 days. There are a lot of people that get time. It's interesting to come to meet. You know, at first when I used to hear of a guy who had 30 years or 20 years or 15 years who drank, I'd say, well, he obviously, because I'm so smart, he obviously didn't do the first step. You know, I'm saying, wait a second, some guy hangs around here for 15 years and stays sober, and he didn't do the first step. I mean, if it was only the first step, I mean, we wouldn't have a big book. You'd have like a bumper sticker or something. I don't know what it is. And then I realized that there's something going on here that's mysterious, that you can't glean. There's a lot of things going on here that you can't glean with your mind. In the first act, Act 1, Scene 1 of Hamlet, Hamlet says to Horatio, after he's describing seeing his father's ghost, he says, you know, there are more things in heaven and earth than meet with your philosophy. Which is to say, we think inside of a little box and we think we're smart, and 90% of the important stuff we don't know. We just don't know, you know, and that's the deal. And we can't accept the fact we don't know, and we so want to really understand this stuff because we're sure that if we're, because all alcoholics are brilliant, they know everything, we're so sure that if we understand and do the perfect four-step, the perfect this, and do this, everything will work out. Like Roland Hazard in the Big Book says it all, where he says he goes to the greatest psychiatrist in the world. He's sober for 6 months, whatever the hell it is in Europe. And then he says this, he graduates, he says, now knowing the inner workings of my mind, drinking was impossible. Next line is nevertheless, he was drunk in a few weeks. He went through Paris and that was the end of that, you know? And so this conception that our thinking, our brain can get us well, when that's the reason we're so sick. We never quite understand what the second step really says. You see, people read the Big Book, but they don't really understand the Big Book. You know, you can see something for 999 times and then see it for the 1,000th time and understand it for the first time. And that's the way it works. You're 10, 15 years sober and you read a line of the Big Book that you've read a million times and say, holy shit, now I know what they're saying. Most people don't understand the second step. They think it has something to do with open-mindedness, and they talk about, let me explain. Well, and I may not be, listen, it's like a kaleidoscope. I mean, there's different meanings at different ages. You see different things. It's like growing up. You're a 3-year-old, you understand what a 3-year-old understands. You're 10 years old, you understand what a 10-year-old. You're 25 years, you're 60, 70 years old, you see things differently. Because you've experienced things differently, and experience is everything. Well, the man with experience meets a man with money. The man with experience will walk away with the money, and the man with the money will walk away with an experience. We're talking about the experience. And so AA's been around for over 90 years. I want you to think about this. It's been around for over 90 years. And something happens, I'm going to use the 20-year period, you know, it could be loose. Something happens between 20 years and 40 years. 20 years and 35 years. There's this giant Grand Canyon where alcoholics fall into the abyss and they're not around. Sober alcoholics are not around. Doesn't happen before 20 years. It happens after 20 years. Nobody's sober until somewhere around 40 years, and then you got 2 guys. Since AA's been around for 90 years, and I understand what it means to be sober in AA, a sober man in AA, a man who's grateful to God. Like Bill Wilson said, the Lord has been so wonderful to me, curing me of this terrible disease. I got to keep talking about it and telling other people. The man who's dedicated, not only and grateful for his sobriety, but his only purpose in life is to get close to God and perform his works well, knowing his works are to be the Good Samaritan and to be where he is planted and trying to help the next guy, because he's no longer selfish, he's unselfish. And men like that, who get to that point, who are rocking in the fourth dimension of existence, who are experiencing much of heaven, who know peace, who aren't just members of the Not Drinking Club, which 95% of the people in AA are, but they're members of the Rockin' in the Fourth Dimension Club. Men who have their entire life is that trying to humbly ask God to remove any defect of character that keeps them from becoming like Him. Men who basically in the sixth step are trying for their entire life to change so they can grow in the image and likeness of their Creator. Those men, they're not around. Because somewhere between 20 years and 40 years is this giant canyon, and it's called the Sixth Step Canyon, where everybody's talking about drunkalogs and nobody's talking about faithful-logs, and everybody gets mad when you talk about God. And nobody quite understands that the sickness, that one of the symptoms, unless and until an alcoholic accepts his alcoholism and all its consequences, his sobriety will be precarious and true happiness will find none at all. And one of the consequences of being an alcoholic is you hate God. And you hate people that talk about God. And you hate people that talk to you about God. That's a sign that you're not sober, not emotionally sober. If that bothers you, what I just said, because I'm here to bother people. If I'm not pissing off 25% of the people, if they're not walking out here and say, who invited that asshole? Who does he think he is? Then I'm not saying anything that's worthwhile. Because 90% of the real stuff I learned in here was learned by listening to guys that would tell me stuff that I hated them. You know, if you knew how much how happy it makes me feel that you're walking out of here hating me and you can't get me out of your mind, and I don't even remember who you are, but you're hating me. You would not hate me because you wouldn't want to give me the satisfaction. You understand? Because I know what happens. You hate somebody because of what they said. And the spiritual axiom said, whenever you're disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with you. So you got to look something deep inside me. Why do I hate that guy? What is that about him? His personality, whatever. And if you're a sober person, you work on that thing real hard to see what disturbs you. You think it's me. It's not me. But if you work real hard, you'll ultimately come to the conclusion. You might come to the conclusion, that asshole was right. And then 8 years from now, if I'm still alive, you'll come up and he says, I used to hate you, but now I love you. And here's the good part. I won't disturb you anymore. But everybody in your life that has traits like me, who is now disturbing you, won't disturb you either. And you've got to figure out why you're disturbed by everything and everybody in your life. And if you can knock those pins down, you'll be at peace with the world. And no person will ever be able to hurt you. So listen, you've got to be, anybody who disturbs you is giving you a spiritual MRI and telling you there's something wrong with you, separating you from God. That's the deal. So this is big canyon. I call it the Sixth Step Canyon. And they just sort of fall into it because if A's been around for 90 years and people are staying sober and they're growing in the image and likeness of their Creator, who's just a servant, serves us, loves us, and we're unselfish, then there should be about 40 people with 40 years in this room. We got a lot of old people in this room. There may be some people with a lot of people with 40 years, but most of the groups I go, there's nobody. And there's maybe 2 people with 30 years, maybe. And there's like between 20 and 40, it's like a vast, hardly anybody. And then all of a sudden you get to between 20 and down, all of a sudden they start popping up. 1 year, a lot of people. 2 years, a lot. 3, 4, 5, a lot of people. But man, I'll tell you, after 20, it's adios. And they really should be here. And I was talking to Andy T up in, we were up in Milwaukee, I was doing a banquet up there, and I don't know what the statistics were you heard, but the statistics I once was told, and I read it was 0.5%. 1 in 200 makes 20 years or more. And he said, they really can't sort of boil it. The way they do it is they figure out in any section how many people are ordering medallions. And there's a gazillion 1 years and a gazillion 2 years and 5 years and 10 years. And when you get up to 20 and 25 and 30, that kind of thing, it's like nothing. It's like 0.5% or something, 20 or 30, like no medallions. Now you could think, well, they're all dead, but that's not true. You could say, well, they're sober, but they're someplace else, but that's not true. Because sober people who have gotten to are doing this thing, what they live for is to help other people. They don't leave here, they stay here. There may be one or two that leave, but they stay here. Because they don't say, now I'm going to get my stuff and go, because that's not emotionally sober. You know? And sometimes somebody will say, I used to think this. A guy would say, everybody who slipped would say, well, why did you slip? Well, I stopped going to meetings. I said, oh, I got it. I'm never going to stop going to meetings. I'll never slip. But I forget. I never ask the next question. Because I forget that 10 years before this, that guy was sitting in a meeting saying, I just never stopped going to meetings. You know, he was saying the same thing. And the real question is not that he stopped going to meetings, not that he stopped speaking to his sponsor, stopped helping people. The real question is, why did he do that? And the reason he did that is because this disease is more than just drinking. Drinking is not even the disease. If you're sober, listen, I have recovered from a hopeless sense of mind and body. Here's a hopeless sense of mind and body. You get up in the morning and you, after 10 years, 15 years of drinking, I don't give a crap how long you've been drinking. You get up in the morning and you say to yourself, sincerely, I'm not going to drink today. And by 5 o'clock you're drinking and you're drunk. So you get up the next morning and you say, I'm not going to buy liquor today. And by 5 o'clock you're drunk and you're buying liquor. And you get up in the morning and say, I'm not going to go to the bar today. By 5 o'clock you're in the bar. And it happens over and over again. You know, I'm not going to buy booze today, and you're searching 4 o'clock, you're searching for dimes, nickels, and quarters. So you can buy a quart bottle of Carlos Rossi Chianti, sit at your phonograph at that time, and play your Alki songs like Only the Lonely or I'm Mr. Blue or Rain Days and Sundays, and think about that girl or those girls and what they did and why they did it and who they're with and why. You think about your funeral a little bit, you know, and all the people are there and you feel so guilty because of the way they treated you and you feel sorry for yourself and, you know, and yeah, you're laughing, you don't know what it's like. And that's a hopeless state of mind and body when you can't stop drinking. You know, that's how I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous on the symptom. I didn't come in on the disease. I didn't understand the disease. I came in on the symptom. There's nothing I'm going to say here that is not, I think, you can check, not put forth in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what it says in the big book? It says our alcohol consumption is but a symptom. And in almost every AA room in the country, which is why we have a big problem in AA, nobody's really staying sober past 20 years. In every room in the country, all they do is they talk about the symptom. Don't drink even if your ass falls off. You know, don't drink and go to meetings. You know, you could have, you know, you could fuck up the whole day, you know what I mean? But if you haven't had a drink, you're a success. And you know, all those things are good because I stayed sober on a lot of those things for 5 years or 10 years. But the problem is those things just deal with so it's all the conventions, everything is about drunkalogs. And I used to love drunkalogs. I think it's possible, maybe, that I can still do my old drunkalogs. They were great. I'm telling you, I did some great drunkalogs, you know. And then I drank, and then I drank, and then I drank, and then I drank. They're great for conventions. What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. You spend about 20, 30 minutes on what it's like. It's so crazy. People are laughing. Then what happened, then what it's like now. And it's all drunkalogs. And somewhere around, there's no faithalogs. There's no faithalogs. Just drunkalogs. Because don't you know, if you talk about God, you're going to kill a newcomer. You're murdering newcomers. And you think if there are as many faithalogs as there were drunkalogs, we'd have less people at 11, 12, 15 years drinking. Because you get to a point where you have this glass ceiling. And you've got 15 years, and you got 18 years, and you got 20 years. And you go into meetings, and all they do is talk about problems. And they're talking about drunkalogs, and they're talking about not drinking, and that isn't your problem. The meetings start becoming irrelevant. You go to the meetings, but it's almost like going to jail. The excitement, you know, the enthusiasm that you first had when you came in is gone, because what you have, you don't even know, and you can't even explain it. All you know is, once again, you're worried about the money, and once again, you're worried about being lonely, and all you know is, once again, you know, you're worried about your wife or your children or the things in your life, or you're anxious or you're bored or you feel like you're a failure. Or you're talking to yourself like alkies talk to themselves, I'm such a piece of shit, I ought to kill myself, And you turn around to see who's saying that crap to you, and you're the only one in the shower. And you got this committee going on in your head, and there's a million different voices telling you all sorts of different things, and they're all bad things about yourself and other people. And it has nothing to do with alcohol. Nothing to do with drinking alcohol. Except it has everything to do with drinking alcohol. And all you do is you go to a meeting to see whether the meeting is going to help you or something like that. And all you hear is people talk about don't drink or their problems or stuff like that. And nobody is talking about the problem that you have. And you got 10 years. And you're not talking about it because you wouldn't even know what to talk about. Because everybody knows you're the guy with 10 or 15 years and you're doing the steps that night. And you ain't going to tell them that you feel like blowing your brains out. And you're not rocketed in the fourth dimension of existence because... Well, you don't even know why you're not going to tell them, but it's because of fear of what they're going to think about you. And so obviously, you haven't gotten to that point where that promise where they said you will lose fear of people you'll lose fear of people and of economic insecurity. And you've been doing this stupid thing for 10 years and 15 years, and you've been doing it by the numbers, and you're nowhere. You're in a vast way, and you don't even realize you're about to drink. It's not going to happen now. It's going to happen 10 years down the road because you're running around and you're doing all the stuff you were told to do that would keep you sober. And you know what it's doing? It's actually keeping you sober. That's why you're not drinking, because you're still sponsoring people, going up to people, but you're doing it by the numbers. You're not doing it because you're happy about it. You're not a happy guy. And so it says in the big book, here and there once in a while, a former drink that says feel better, look better, have a better time, we laugh at such Sally, we know we'll try the whole game again, because he's not happy with his sobriety. Soon he'll know loneliness if you do. And it's lonely because you don't have any friends, and you don't have anybody you can confide in, and nobody's telling you what's really wrong with you. And the newcomers are doing okay because they're just trying to stay sober, drinking one day at a time. But the guys with 11, 12, and 15 years, they're drinking. Or they're leaving meetings because there's nothing in the meetings, and all of a sudden the world is picking them off. The worldly clamors. Because the bottom line is, you don't even realize this, but it says in the big book, in the last page, it says, God will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. And you don't even know you need fellowship. You crave fellowship, spiritual fellowship. But if you can't get spiritual fellowship, you'll hang out with the guys at the bar. You'll hang out with somebody that's going to give you another type of fellowship. Be sexual fellowship, romantic fellowship, money fellowship. It'll be the worldly stuff like Bill Wilson talks about, the fudge. Next thing you know, you're trying to gain satisfaction by the same thing you were doing before you even got sober. You're just trying to get more money, more things, more stuff. And then you're back in an AA meeting, maybe if you're lucky, 5 years down the road saying, I had 10, 15 years, I stopped going to meetings, now I'm back again. And you're like that guy, and you just don't really understand because you never understood because you never utterly surrendered. You understand what I'm saying? And so what you have to understand is you say you've got the symptom of the disease, which is drinking, and then you've got the dis-ease that centers in your mind, not your body. And so you got the second step, which everybody thinks it has to do with open-mindedness, which that's a good place to start, but you understand you're in a spiritual kindergarten. You're in kindergarten, for God's sakes. You're in kindergarten. AA is a spiritual kindergarten. You know what it means? Let me tell you what it means. It means you're in a spiritual kindergarten here. Like this is a kindergarten class for 3-year-olds. You understand? 3 or 4-year-olds. You're in kindergarten. But some people want to get to the first grade or the second grade or maybe even high school or guess say college or maybe postgraduate. They want to go up, but they can't. They can't leave. They can't grow up. They can't become the men. They have to stay the boys. You know why? Because of the crabs. Because of the crabs. Because if you've ever been crabbing and you catch a crab and you put it in a bucket, the crab will crawl out of the bucket. But the only way to keep the crab in the bucket is you catch another crab and you put it in the bucket too. So now you got 2 crabs in the bucket. And as soon as the first crab tries to crawl out of the bucket, as soon as he tries to crawl out, the second crab grabs him and pulls him back in. So somebody read something in the book about utterly abandoning yourself to God. God is either everything or he's nothing. Great facts is this and nothing less. God has become the central fact in their life. You have to be convinced that he lives in your heart and mind, which is indeed miraculous. Doing for you what you can't do for yourself. Above everything, we must get rid of the selfishness. We must or it kills us. God makes that possible. There seems no other way of getting rid of it. You know, they read that part about the book. It says God will, once we sincerely make a decision, not just make a decision, sincerely do it. And you'll know whether you sincerely do it by how you act. You know? And if you apologize for God or you're scared of God, you're not sincerely doing it. Because we never apologize for God. It says it twice. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. They'll let him demonstrate in his life what he can do. So if you make that sincere decision for God, if you do that, then you know that God will give you everything you need if you stay close to him and perform his work well. And his work is to help other people and to spread this message. But you're trying to find out about that. And they crawl out of the bucket, and some guy in an A room that looks like he has some time, he's got 11 years or something, he goes up to you, he says, you know, I heard you talk about the God thing, you know you're killing newcomers. You know, we don't talk about that stuff in AA. You're allowed to say you're an atheist. You can say you don't believe in God. You can say you're an agnostic. We won't criticize you for that. I mean, we welcome you. We applaud that shit, you know? You know, now, I know the book says this sort of thing has to be abandoned, but we applaud that stuff. When you start talking about God, you're going to get the shit pounded out of you. And everybody in AA knows that. And so we all stay in the bucket of crabs. And a few people, every once in a while, have the courage, because for some reason, they lose fear of other people. You know, why be scared? I'm going to be scared of some guy who's sitting next to me in an AA meeting and letting me pay my Visa bill. You know what I mean? Alcoholics are delusional. They sit around telling themselves shit like, I don't give a crap what other people think about me. Alcoholics will actually say stuff like that. They'll tell other people. I used to say that to other people. I don't give a crap what they think about me. Screw them, I don't give a crap. I can say that drunk, I can say that sober. Sometimes I say it to myself, I don't give a crap what they think about me. You know? But everybody knows that people that say I don't give a crap what other people think about me, all they do is think about what other people think about them, because people that really don't give a crap what other people think about them don't say that shit. They say things like pass the ketchup, but they don't say that crap, you know? And so the bottom line is we are just so delusional. And you know something? That stuff happens sober, and that is something that centers in your mind, not your body. And so we got this book that says Chapter to the Agnostics and Atheists, and this is what it says. It says, if a mere code of morals, do the next right thing. Or a new philosophy of life. What's a new philosophy of life? Good orderly direction. It's a philosophy of life. As if alcoholics know how to do any of that shit. Would have saved us. We'd be sober a long time ago, but they didn't save us. Our thinking didn't save us. Our morals didn't save us. None of that stuff saved us. Lack of power is our dilemma. We don't really accept that lack of power thing. We want to play God. They talk about we have to stop playing God. We want to play God. We're dying to play God. I don't like the God. Lack of power was our dilemma. We had to find the power greater than ourselves that would help us with this. And that is why we wrote a book where, of course, they use the word of course, we have to talk about God. And here's the next, God bless you. And here's the next, yeah, you're allowed to say God in name. So we had to talk about God. And the next line, we had to talk about God. The next line is this. Here's where the problem arises. Because alcoholics hate God. Because one of the keys and one of the symptoms of alcoholics is they despise God. They despise the solution. They don't say it exactly that way. They say something like, the bristles in our neck roll up. You know what I mean? They say and they give all the reasons because we were shoved into it and told bad things about God when we were kids. Whatever the heck it is, it doesn't matter. The point is, one of the symptoms of being an alcoholic, one of the consequences is you hate God. And so when people come up to you and say, what they say, one of the signs that you're emotionally mature and emotionally sober is you lose all prejudice even against organized religion. You begin to see where religious people are right. You don't have contempt. You don't have a resentment. 20 years sober? and you're still pissed off at the Catholic Church, what the fuck is wrong with you? I don't consider those people sober. I don't consider people sober. If you got a hard on for the Catholic, there's something wrong with you. You got to figure that out. I don't give a shit whether you have 20 or 30 years. You're pissed off at the church. You want to say bad things about the church? You might as well say bad things about everything. We're all screwed up. There's something wrong with you. If that's keeping you from God, I feel sorry for you. You know why? Because Dr. Bob said, if you're an atheist, agnostic, or have some sort of intellectual pride where you can't understand what the hell we're trying to tell you, I feel sorry for you. Your Heavenly Father will never let you down. I don't give a crap how conference approved. I talk about founders approved. I know what the founders approved. Because I read Dr. Bob in the good old times, I know what they were doing. And so we come to this thing called the second step. I've already talked about the first step, but you might have missed it. Because I don't talk about I drank myself into the first step. I don't know of any other way of doing it. I really don't. I don't know of any other way of doing the first step. And you could say I'm wrong. You could say you could teach somebody the first step. I don't necessarily believe it, but you could say that. I just don't. I'm not saying because you could have guys that are 20 years and say I learned the first step, right? There's something about me that thinks that somehow it's an experiential thing. If it's going to last, if it's going to make a real impression on you, you understand? I guess you could probably get to the point and say yes, I see it. You sort of accept it and all that sort of stuff. But there's nothing like the desperation and the pain. Nothing like the desperation and the pain. You know what I mean? And if you hate me for that, you just have to work on that. You have to talk to your sponsor about that shit. He'll tell you don't worry about it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I probably don't. I just say shit just to get you all upset. You know what I mean? So, and that's the deal. And all of a sudden you're sitting there and all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're on the second step because the first step pushes you into the second step. That's what happened to me. One day, after I divorced my wife and everything like that and lost my kids and did all the damage I could possibly do because I was decided that they were holding me back and I was going to become the UFter of Miami and I ended up being alone at 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas morning in 1981 by myself. After everybody deserted me, I thought my life was over. I was 31 years old, never get better again. I turned on a TV set. There was some preacher talking about, the gospel and sharing the gospel message. And and I'm a sucker for testimony. He was talking about what it was like, what happened. And he says, you really want your life changed? You get down on your knees and ask the Lord to come into your life. I was down on my knees in a shock. I asked Jesus to come into my life. And I'm a Jewish kid from Great Neck, New York. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to explain. You had to be there at the time. No, really, you had to be there. If you were there at the time, you'd understand what the story was. I'm lucky it was a preacher and not Hare Krishna, so I'd be down at the airport right now. But they may have something there for them, but I don't know. But the bottom line is that, and I'm not saying that sort of thing lasts. I didn't really think much happened because 5 guys, 5 priests and rabbis didn't come down with Dunkin' Donuts saying we got an A meeting going. Here, I continued to drink for a month, and then I almost died and almost killed myself and somebody else. And I looked up and I said, God help me. And something happened. I don't know something happened. Best way I can explain it, nobody knows why they're sober. Nobody knows why they're sober. If you know why you're sober, if you really know why you're sober, you're full of shit. Because you don't know why you're sober. You have no idea. One day you couldn't stop drinking, the next day you stopped drinking. You don't have a clue. So I'm willing to accept the fact that stuff I don't know, this has to do with God. It's a God thing, And the bottom line is, so I'm given a gift. But you know something? You can rip that gift up and you can throw it away. You can throw that. Did I ruin everything? You can throw that gift away. And so then what happens is you come into AA and they talk about something called the second step. And the second step, I think, now correct me if I'm wrong because I forget. Because what happens with the steps is you do them over and over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over and over again. The spiritual axiom, you finally accept that. You absolutely accept it as being true. I don't know whether it happens in 10 years, 50, you accept it as being true. Whenever you're disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with you. So the next person that disturbs you, that lasts for about 5 seconds. And then the first thing you say is, what the hell is wrong with me? Why does that bother me? And maybe you write it down. Maybe you check with your sponsor, and and after a while you just do it in your mind. Why is that guy excited? And you figure, oh, that's why, because I'm worried about the money. Whatever it is, it's not that you don't do the steps, they become second nature. They're always second nature. Your first nature is to get a machete and chop people's heads off, you know what I mean? But the second nature takes over, and it's not that you're doing the steps, you're living the steps. You're living the big book. You're thinking fourth step. You're thinking fifth step. You're talking fifth step. You're having conversations with people. It sounds like the fifth step. You know what I mean? The people are talking to you about their inner life. You're helping people. You're not doing the 12th step. This is just what you do. You just sit there and try to encourage people, help them, or kick them in the ass. You just become the deal. You are the Good Samaritan. You don't go out and say, how can I be the Good Samaritan? You are that guy. You know what I mean? You go to meetings. You don't go to meetings saying, well, I need a meeting, even though we all need a meeting. I needed this meeting. It's not that we don't need a meeting. We need a meeting. You go to meetings because that's where you can best help people. You're sitting on an airplane and you're hoping that the guy sitting next to you has a drinking problem. Because your whole life, because you don't give a shit about going to Vegas. You don't give a crap about going on a boat. You don't give a crap. All you care about is there a person I can help. And get this is where it gets really weird. It gives you a great deal of pleasure. Man, you would rather help people than get laid. That's when you've really gone over the fucking top. That's when it's late for you. You ain't coming back. You know what I mean? You just get such a kick out of doing God's work and helping people and talking about God and that kind of thing. So then you do the second step. So the second step says, correct me if I'm wrong, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Did I get that? To sanity? Could restore sanity. Did I get that right? So, came to believe that it could restore us to sanity. But listen to me. Now, here's what you don't realize. That that you don't need to be restored to sanity unless you're insane. Now, people sort of slough off that, because if the second step read, you're insane, they wouldn't buy into that. Because, alcoholics are very well defended. You can't tell an alcoholic you're insane, you're stupid, or there's something wrong with you, or anything like that, because they'll fight you. They're so well defended. We don't have a story when we come here. The story is like, well, it's not my fault, I'm not to blame, you don't understand, blah, blah, blah. You know how we get our stories in here? You know how we learn about our disease? You're sitting in a meeting like this, you listen to some guy talking, you say, oh man, that guy is crazy. And then all of a sudden this thought comes across your mind, holy shit, I was doing that last week. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to come at them at the side. They hear some crazy stuff, and they realize, man, I was doing that stuff. Man, I'm crazy. You know what I mean? And you start getting the sense that this disease is more than just drinking. Drinking may only be the symptom of the disease. And if people drink after 11 or 12 or 15 years or 5 years, it's not because of the drinking disease. It's not because of craving. Craving is when you drink and then you got to have another one. But if you haven't had a drink in 5 years, why do you pick up a drink? You pick up a drink because you're insane. Because you have never dealt with the true dis-ease, which centers in your mind, not your body. The dis-ease, where you spend money you don't have, buying shit you don't need to impress people you don't even like. The dis-ease, where you worry about what people think about you. The real true disease, where you tell yourself all sorts of bullshit and lies, and you hurt other people, and you make decisions based upon self, which put you in a position to be hurt. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the real problem. Driven. We're on automatic pilot. You don't make a decision, you're driven. By 1,000 forms, 100 forms of fear. If you even know 2 forms, you're missing 98. 100 forms of fear. We're delusional. Selfishness, self-centered, that's the root of our trouble. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking. We step on the toes of others, they retaliate seemingly without provocation, but we learned that somewhere in the past, we've made a decision based upon selfishness, which puts us in a position to be hurt. So an alcoholic is self-will-run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. So most alcoholics won't even see this stuff. Above everything, he must get rid of self. We must, or it kills us. Above everything, he must get rid of self. And then it says God makes that possible. Oh, that's right, but you can't talk about that in the head. Because the crabs will bring you down and tell you you're killing newcomers. And what's happening is you're killing guys for 11 years. And you're telling them they can't talk about AA because AA is not exactly, by the way, this fellowship, great fellowship, I love it, it's not Well People's Anonymous. Anybody clue in on that? It's not, really. This isn't, let's get a whole bunch of insane people together, you know what I mean? And see how they're doing. Oh, Lord Jesus. This is unbelievable. Alcoholics, you know, what can I tell you? We're great, you know, and it's amazing. So that's the deal. So somehow, somewhere along the, and when do you learn that? When you get sober. You get physically sober, and for years in AA, I thought I was sober because I was sober. Because, you know, they're saying, anybody want a white, red, green, birthday night, happy birthday to you, here's your 1 year, here's your 5 years, your 10 years, your 15 years. I'm sober. It's all important, it's all great, it's great for the newcomer, and you're sober, and you know you're sober because you've got all these medallions. So you know you're sober. You know what I mean? You work your program, I'll work my program. You don't understand that every time you wake up every morning and say, if I only had a new girlfriend, if I only had more sex, if I only had a new wife, if I only had this, if I only had that, if I only had the car, if I only had this, and then you're around trying to get all that shit in your life, and you don't get it and you're mad, or you do get it, and then it wears off in 5 seconds, you're off to the other one, and then if only, and you don't even realize that every time you say, if only I had this, I'd be okay, that what you're really telling yourself is, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, over and over again. And you're never okay. And the truth of the matter is the man who has God is always okay. You're okay right now, but you don't realize you're okay. Because deep down inside, you have this thing going on because, what's his face? The doctor, I forgot his name already.
Carl Jung?
No. Carl Menninger said, he said, alcoholics are men and women who are out to destroy themselves. So somehow, deep down inside, even though you think you're the greatest in the world, what you really think is you're a piece of shit. As a matter of fact, when you call yourself names in front of the mirror and say, I'm such a loser, I'll never be okay, I mean, you look around, where's that coming from? That's coming from you. That's your reputation of you with you. That's what you really think about yourself. With all the cover-ups and all the bullshit, you know, without any question, if they really knew who you were, they'd hate your guts. And so you try to blend, because if you're an alcoholic, you're a please love me aholic, please don't hate me aholic, don't laugh at me aholic, don't talk about me behind your black aholic, which is keeps you quiet in AA. You're not going to talk about God because you know they'll all laugh at you. And God forbid, the last thing an alcoholic wants is people laughing at you. Laughing at him. What a sorry life, to live your entire life worrying about whether you look good to other people or whether they accept you. You can't talk like this. No, you'll never do this though. Because I never talk to a group. I only talk to him. The only thing I think about when I walk out the door is like, did I do right by him? Did I say what he wants me to say? It's not about whether you like me or not, because most people in AA aren't going to stay sober. But there's going to be one or two that hear this thing and figure this thing out. You know? And so you start realizing over a period of time, because of repeated humiliations, and this is all big book stuff in 12 and 12, because of repeated humiliations and the final crushing of our self-sufficiency, what happens is you get a new perspective of your disease. Because the first step in getting out of jail is you got to know you're in jail in the first place. It's one thing to know you're in the alcoholic jail. It's another thing to know that you're in the insanity jail and your brain is really the thing that's screwing you up. See, that's the problem, because alcoholics think they're so smart they can figure this thing out. So it's difficult to get an alcoholic whose biggest pride is I'm smart and I'm smarter than you, and you're defending yourself on that, to understand how insane they really are. And that's what's holding you back. And that's a hard thing to give up. Because if you give up your brain, and the only sign of giving up your brain is if you start following another man or another woman and start doing what he tells you to do, and that's a difficult thing to. But I don't know many people, and AA doesn't get anywhere, where they can't point to a sponsor, or different people in their lives say, he told me to do this and I did it. And most of the time they tell you to do something, you think they're crazy. But you end up doing it and then you find out they're right. And if you're incapable of loving another man or another woman and putting yourself in their hands and doing what they say and following direction, How are you ever going to believe in a God or follow his directions or be disciplined by him? How are you ever going to be mature enough? You're going to be like children, and that's the deal. And there's so much more to this deal. And over a period of time, you learn more and more and more and more repeated humiliations over a lifetime that gives you a new perspective. So the only thing that's different about me, really, is, I'm not, I'm in my 42nd year of sobriety. You know what that means? That means I've had the shit pounded out of me for 42 years. You know what I mean? All that means is I've got a completely different perspective on things that are different than the guy with 10 years, 11 years. So I'm going to speak differently. You understand? My story has changed. My story used to be, and then I drank, and then I drank, and then I drank. It was all about the drinking for 5, 10 years. Bill Wilson, everybody gets to this point that gets time. Bill Wilson had 23 years sobriety. The leader of the band, everything, you know what I mean? 10 years sobriety, was going down the tubes. He was going to commit suicide. He was going to drink. He was going crazy. Couldn't understand. He wrote an essay. He finally figured it out. He wrote an essay. And the essay was about emotional sobriety. He said there's physical sobriety and emotional. And one of the things he said alcoholics, the real problem is we're addicted to unhealthy dependencies. His unhealthy dependency was AA. AA is not my God. My sponsor's not my God. The conference is not my God. You know what I mean? My God, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. My God has all power. And the closer you get to him, the more you realize that he really exists and he's in your life. The bottom line is the more things clear up. Very hard thing for alcoholics to grasp, to do that deal. So I'm going to end this with one thing. I don't know. Look, almost done. So I'm going to end with one thing. I have a bunch of people that I love. A lot of them are on Zoom and everything like that I get to be with. I love Zoom. I got to be honest with you. I go to do a lot of these meetings, but I love Zoom meetings. I'll tell you why. Because I can go on Zoom. I am no longer geographically bound to go to meetings that are near me. I can hook up to a meeting where there's people from all over the planet. They're from Australia, they're from France, they're from England, they're from New York, they're from Las Vegas, and the only reason they're together, besides being alcoholics, is they're like-minded. So I can go to a group where I can talk about God the way I want to talk about God, that is the central fact of my life, and nobody's rolling their eyes, nobody's saying, I don't want to hear that crap, you're killing newcomers, because they're all unified and on the same page. So I love the Zoom thing, you understand? So with my people on WhatsApp and everything, I passed something to them today. And I'm going to ask you a question. And this is right out of the big book. So I want to ask you the same question I wrote to them. So just give me a moment to find this baby, if I can. I actually had it up on my phone, but as all things, I lost it. Let me read you something that I wrote today, because I want you to, this is a question, and I just want you to think about it, okay? Let me see where I can find it. Oh, boy. Okay. So let me ask you this question. There's a question for you. It's right, it's a big book question. It's like if you read the big book over and over again, 12 and 12, and Dr. Bob and Good Old Timers, and you were going in for a test, a big book test, okay? And it's one question. And this is the question. If a man or a woman is living on a new basis of trusting and relying upon God, if his or her attitude is one of never apologizing for his faith in God, if he has the courage, as all men of God do, and instead of hiding his faith, he demonstrates what God has done for him in his life. If he indeed loses all resentment against God and organized religion, if he can see where religious people are right, if God is everything to him and he has abandoned himself utterly to God, if he has made a sincere decision for God and desires to grow in the image and likeness of God and have God remove any defect that separates him from God, if he needs to carry this message to others, what would that man or woman sound or look like? What would that man or woman sound or look like? In the natural evolution of his character, what would he become? What would he become? Would he be a guy? Would it be a guy at meetings saying, well, if they had said that to me, I would have walked out of the room. Would he be a guy in meetings that's rolling his eyes every time? Would he be a guy in meetings that just hates it? Well, what would you expect a guy who's like imbued with this AA thing to look like? What do you want to look like?
Recovered.
You ought to check that out, because you want to know something? That describes your destination. If you're looking for a different destination, you're in the wrong organization. If your destination is just don't drink and go to meetings, let me tell you something, you're going to drink. Trust me, you're going to drink if that's your destination. That wasn't Dr. Bob's destination. He said, he wrote the thing, first things first, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be given to you, added to you. It wasn't St. Francis's. Everybody likes reading St. Francis' prayer. That wasn't St. Francis's definition. I can tell you, it just wasn't. Well, it wasn't Bill Dotson, Alcoholics Anonymous number 3 destination when he wrote the Golden Text. When they say we will surely meet some of you as we trudge the road to happy destiny, you might want to figure out what happy destiny looks like. What happy destiny may look like for us if we're doing this thing. So thank you very much.